My name is Dick Thompson and I am a veteran broadcast engineer. My wife Sharon and I have been living in the hustle and bustle of the big city for more than 20 years, and we've been married for 22 years. We've been married for 22 years and have two lovely daughters, Melanie and Stephanie, and to the casual observer, we seem to be an enviable couple, perfect in our careers and at home. But only I know that underneath this seemingly peaceful life, some small cracks are spreading quietly. Sharon is a secretary for a charity and works in an old church in the city center. Recently, she has been coming home late and even staying out at night from time to time. At first, I didn't pay much attention to her, thinking she was just too busy with work. But gradually, I realized that things were not so simple. Sharon became more and more distant from me, and even when we were together, it was as if her heart wasn't in it. She began to take frequent personal calls, but when I asked, she was always vague. The communication between us became less and less, and the love we once shared was gradually replaced by indifference. I tried to save our relationship, but every time I tried to communicate, Sharon skillfully avoided me. I began to wonder if my wife was having an affair. Late one night, I received a call from an unknown caller who identified himself as Bob, a co-worker at Sharon's church. The caller identified himself as Bob, a co-worker from Sharon's church, and he stammered to me that Sharon might be having an affair with their boss, Pastor James. He claimed that Sharon and Pastor James had been seeing a lot of each other lately and were often alone in the office after hours. I was reeling, furious. How could Sharon, my beloved wife of more than 20 years, the mother of my children, have done such a thing? I refused to believe it, but the cloud of suspicion grew. I started investigating Sharon's whereabouts, even planted a bug in her office, but to my dismay, I found no conclusive evidence. I couldn't find any conclusive evidence that Sharon and Pastor James were behaving in public as normal co-workers. Was it really just me being paranoid? And so, I suffered from doubt and self-doubt. I became irritable and my relationship with Sharon became increasingly strained. Our once loving marriage seemed to be on the verge of breaking up. Finally, the day before our anniversary, a chance discovery made me completely devastated. I left work early that day to surprise Sharon, but when I arrived at the church, Sharon's car wasn't in the parking lot. I turned on my cell phone and her location showed up at Pastor James' place. I felt a wave of dizziness and rage. I rushed to Pastor James' house, pounding on the door and screaming Sharon's name. And when Pastor James opened the door, I grabbed him by the collar and asked him where his wife was. Just then, I heard a gasp from behind me, and it was Sharon and our daughters, Melanie and Stephanie. It was Sharon and our daughters, Melanie and Stephanie, who were staring in disbelief at the scene before them, not understanding what was happening. Sharon tearfully explained that they were preparing a surprise party for our anniversary and Pastor James was just helping out. And Pastor James handed me an invitation that Sharon had planned to give me on our anniversary. I was stunned. Was it all just a misunderstanding? How could I have doubted my wife and my family? Shame and remorse overwhelmed me, and I hugged Sharon and my daughters tightly, sobbing uncontrollably. But I knew that there was a crack in our marriage. This misunderstanding had ripped away the problems that lay beneath the surface of our lives. Sharon and I needed to work on our relationship and rebuild our trust. I looked at Sharon's crying face and secretly vowed that I would save my marriage and not let our love be broken like this. No matter how many difficulties lie ahead, I will face them together with Sharon. A wedding anniversary surprise party that kicked off in dramatic fashion. I knew that this would be a turning point in our marriage, a chance for a fresh start. And I will never again let my doubts and neglects hurt the people I love the most. After that unexpected night, things between Sharon and I became more delicate. Although the misunderstanding had been cleared up, we both realized that there was something wrong with our marriage. I began to reflect on what I had done in the marriage. I realized that over the years, I had been so focused on my career that I had neglected my wife's feelings. I often used work as an excuse to miss out on time with my family. Sharon, perhaps because of her loneliness and lack of attention, sought solace in the church. Guilt and remorse swept over me like a tidal wave. I knew that I had to change, that I had to try to save my marriage. I began to adjust my work schedule to spend as much time as possible with Sharon and the children. I tried to be more considerate and caring to Sharon, communicating with her and understanding her thoughts. We started to date like we did when we were in love, and we renewed our love. However, repairing a broken relationship is never easy. Sharon still seemed to be haunted by the events of the day. Although she accepted my apology, I could sense that she still had a grudge against me. She sometimes gets angry for no reason or avoids close contact with me. There is still a lot of awkwardness and coldness between us. I am incredibly frustrated. I was really trying, but it seemed to have little effect. Whenever I tried to communicate with Sharon, it always turned into an argument without me realizing it. We blamed each other, opened each other's wounds, and always ended up disagreeing. I began to wonder if maybe there was something wrong with us that couldn't be fixed. Maybe Sharon and I just weren't right for each other anymore. The despair of my marriage hung over me like a dark cloud. Just when I was about to give up, our oldest daughter, Melanie, gave me an unexpected piece of advice. "Dad, I know you and Mom have been having some problems lately." One evening, Melanie came into my study and said frankly, "But I believe that you really love each other. It's just that often. Love needs some time and space to mend." I looked at my daughter quizzically, not quite understanding what she meant. Melanie continued, "I think you might want to take some time apart to calm down and reflect. This doesn't mean giving up, but giving each other a chance to grow. When you're both clear, then you can start again." I was silent for a long time, Melanie's words sending ripples through me. Maybe she was right. Maybe Sharon and I really needed some time to heal and reflect. The next day, I gathered my courage and suggested to Sharon that we separate. To my surprise, Sharon did not object. With tears in her eyes, she said that she, too, felt that we might need some space. So, I moved to an apartment in the city and started living apart from Sharon. We agreed not to contact each other during the separation and to focus on our own lives and growth. It was hard to get used to in the beginning. Without Sharon and the girls, I felt more alone than ever. The empty apartment was a constant reminder of the failure of my marriage. I spent many late nights tossing and turning, thinking about my family. Gradually, however, I began to enjoy this time alone. I had more time to reflect on myself and examine my role in my marriage and family. I began to read books on marriage and communication and learned how to be a better husband and father. I also rediscovered the joy of life. I enrolled in a photography class and got back to the hobby of my youth. I started to meet up with my friends more often and experience the freedom of the single life. In this process, I gradually found myself, but also have a new understanding of life. I began to understand that marriage is not a bondage, but a choice. Love is not possession, but giving. I began to learn to appreciate the beauty of life, rather than insisting on perfection. Before I knew it, a few months had passed. I felt myself growing up and missing Sharon and my daughters more and more during the time of separation. I began to wonder if the separation was the right decision. Could we really save our marriage by separating? Just when I was struggling, an unexpected invitation renewed my hope. It was a text message from Sharon inviting me to attend our youngest daughter Stephanie's graduation. My heart was pounding. This was the first time Sharon had reached out to me. Does this mean that she misses me too and wants to fix our relationship? With much trepidation and anticipation, I returned to my home after months of absence. When I saw Sharon and my daughters, I was overwhelmed with excitement. Sharon looked much more haggard, but her eyes were more calm and open. I knew she had been through a lot. At my daughter's graduation, Sharon and I talked like normal friends. We talked about our separation and what we had learned from each other. I was surprised to find that Sharon's thoughts were surprisingly consistent with mine. It turned out that during this period of time, she was also reflecting and growing up. "Dick, I think I understand." Sharon held my hand, her eyes moist. "Our marriage is something that needs to be managed and cared for. We must all learn to understand and tolerate each other, learn to be honest and communicate. Separation makes me realize how important you are to me. I don't want to lose you. I want to work with you to rebuild our family." Tears blurred my eyes. I hugged Sharon tightly and felt the warmth I hadn't felt in a long time. Yes, we have both grown up and learned the true meaning of love. I believe that after this ordeal, our marriage will only get stronger. That day, I moved back into our home. Looking at the smiling faces of Sharon and our daughters, I knew that our new life had just begun. Starting life over hasn't been easy. As much as Sharon and I tried, we still had a lot of issues to work out between us. In particular, I couldn't quite get over what had happened with Sharon and Pastor James. I knew that it was just a misunderstanding and that there was nothing improper between Sharon and Pastor James. But every time I remembered that day at Pastor James' house, an uncontrollable fire would still rise in my heart. I became paranoid and couldn't help but ask questions about Sharon's whereabouts. Sharon felt very aggrieved. She said that she had explained very clearly that she and Pastor James were really just co-workers. She couldn't understand why I still didn't trust her. We argued about it several times. After each argument, we felt exhausted, but the problem remained unresolved. I knew that if I continued to be so unreasonable, our relationship, which had not been easily repaired, would probably break down again. I decided that I had to have hard evidence to prove Sharon's innocence and to explain myself. Only then can the trust between us be rebuilt. I started investigating Sharon and Pastor James in secret. I reinstalled a bug to listen to their conversations in the office. I followed their movements after work to see if they did anything suspicious. I even checked Sharon's cell phone secretly to see her call logs and text messages. However, to my dismay, I found no evidence of impropriety, and Sharon's dealings with Pastor James appeared to have been, as Sharon had said, simply that of ordinary co-workers. They talked about work and church business, never anything personal. They never saw each other alone after work, nor did they engage in any intimate behavior. My heart began to shake. Maybe Sharon was telling the truth, or maybe I was too paranoid to trust my wife. Just when I was about to give up, an unexpected discovery turned the story around again. That day, I went to Sharon's office as usual to install a bug. When I was lying under her desk, I accidentally found a box hidden in the bottom drawer. Out of curiosity, I opened it and found many pictures of Pastor James and some love letters tied with ribbons. My heart sank hard. What is this? Didn't Sharon say she and Pastor James were just co-workers? Why are there these photos and love letters? Is she lying to me? My hands were shaking and I could barely hold the pictures. In the photos, Sharon and Pastor James were hugging each other with happy smiles on their faces. In the love letter, Pastor James expressed his thoughts and love for Sharon in loving words. I felt a wave of dizziness and anger flooded my brain. Sharon, you've been lying to me all this time. You and Pastor James are a couple of adulterers. I wanted to go up to you and expose you for what you were doing, but reason told me I had to calm down. I needed more solid evidence to really expose Sharon's lies. I had to get Sharon to admit her infidelity and let her know the price of cheating on me. I left the church in anguish, unable to find peace in my heart. How was I going to deal with this? What should I do with my marriage? For a while, I didn't know what to do. For the next few days, I was in a constant state of pain and struggle. I couldn't sleep at night, and images of Sharon and Pastor James' intimacy kept flashing in my mind. I even began to imagine how they had cheated on me in our marital bed and laughed at my stupidity and blindness. I hated Sharon's betrayal, and I hated my naivety even more. I hated the hypocrisy and cruelty of the world that made me spend half of my life to realize what true love is. I started drinking. I was a mess and I lost all faith in life. I wouldn't go to work. I wouldn't answer Sharon's calls. I wouldn't even see my daughters. I knew I was pushing my life into the abyss, but I couldn't help it. It took a few weeks for me to get over my sadness and despair. I knew I couldn't go on like this. I had to get back on my feet for myself and for my daughters. I'm determined to gather hard evidence and have a showdown with Sharon. I'm going to make her confess to her crimes, and then I'm going to divorce her. I'm going to start my life over and get my dignity back. I hired a private investigator to watch Sharon and Pastor James around the clock, and I want evidence of every meeting and every phone call they have. At the same time, I've contacted a lawyer for divorce counseling. I want to be prepared so that Sharon doesn't have any chance to argue. A few weeks later, the private investigator made a startling discovery. He had taken photographs of Sharon and Pastor James in a hotel room, and they were going in and out of the room at times when it was obvious they weren't discussing business. It was the last piece of evidence I needed and the last straw that broke the camel's back. My heart was cold and calm. I knew it was time to put an end to this farce. I was going to expose Sharon's lies to her face, and I was going to make her pay. I asked Sharon to talk to me at home and left my daughters alone. When Sharon walked in unsuspectingly, I coldly greeted her and threw the photos and love letters in her face. "Explain," I said calmly, my eyes like ice. "Explain your relationship with Pastor James. Explain how you lied to me and betrayed me all these years." In the face of my questioning and evidence, Sharon was pale and trembling. She looked at the photos and love letters with panic and despair in her eyes. "Dick, I can explain." Sharon choked, tears spilling from her eyes. "It's not what you think." "Oh, then tell me, what is this?" I sneered, pointing to the ambiguous photos. "You and Pastor James in a hotel room, and this is work? You were discussing church business in bed?" Sharon cried even harder. Her defense seemed so pale.
I'm sorry.
"I was wrong. Please forgive me." She dropped to the floor, sobbing uncontrollably. I looked down at her without a ripple in my heart. "Sharon, you have betrayed our marriage and this family. I don't have any feelings for you anymore. The only thing I want to do is divorce you." Sharon's head snapped up, panic written all over her face.
No.
"Dick, I don't want a divorce. I know I'm wrong, but please give me a chance. I swear, I'll never see Pastor James again, and I'll make it up to you." I looked at her coldly and said, word for word, "No, Sharon. I've had enough of your lies and betrayal. There is no room in this house for a woman like you. We have to get a divorce, and I'll get custody of the kids." Sharon's eyes widened as if she couldn't believe I would say such a thing. She scrambled to her feet and tried to grab my hand. "No, Dick, don't do this to me. The kids need me. You can't take them away from me. Please, give me another chance." I shook her hand off hard and turned away. "I've made my decision, Sharon. I've made my decision, Sharon, and I'll be contacting an attorney as soon as possible to start divorce proceedings. You'd better get a lawyer too and prepare for the lawsuit." For the next few days, Sharon and I were locked in a protracted legal battle. We each hired lawyers and began the long process of divorce proceedings. My attorney was recommended by my old friend Mark, Jennifer, an experienced female attorney. She is very knowledgeable in family law and has successfully handled many complex divorce cases. I gave Jennifer all the evidence, including photos of Sharon cheating on her, love letters, and the private investigator's report, and Jennifer scrutinized the material and thought I had a good chance of winning. "Dick, based on this evidence, Sharon is clearly at fault, and her behavior has seriously violated your marriage contract." Jennifer analyzed, "We can file a divorce suit based on Sharon's fault. At the same time, considering the interests of the children, we also have to fight for the custody of the children." With Jennifer's help, I formally filed for divorce. I cited evidence of Sharon's infidelity, accused her of destroying our marriage, and asked for custody of the children and most of the community property. Sharon, on the other hand, seemed to have some illusions that she was trying to save our marriage through legal means. She's got a famous male attorney trying to refute my allegations on all sorts of grounds. In the following trial, both lawyers argued and argued. We both tried to prove our innocence and to gain the upper hand in the divorce case. During the trial, much of Sharon's past was revealed. Details of her affair with Pastor James, how she used the church's charity program for her own benefit, and how many affairs she had outside. These scandals have left her virtually defenseless in court. I watched Sharon cry without a trace of pity in my heart. "Since you chose to betray me, you have to pay the price. I won't let you ruin my honor and the happiness of my children." But what I didn't expect was Sharon's last resort. During a trial, she suddenly announced in court that she was 2 months pregnant, and the father was Pastor James. I was stunned by the sudden news, which made me feel like the sky was spinning. I never thought that Sharon's betrayal would go this far. Sharon looked at me with tears streaming down her face. Her voice choked. "I'm sorry, Dick. I know this is cruel to you, but I'm really in love with James and I want to be with him. This baby is the fruit of our love." I felt a wave of nausea that almost made me vomit on the spot. I stared at Sharon and said, "You disgust me, Sharon. You dirty, low-life woman. You don't deserve to be a mother, and you don't deserve my love. I will not raise this child." Sharon looked at me in despair. her eyes blurred with tears. She seemed to want to say something else, but I had already turned and left the courtroom. I never wanted to see her again, never wanted to hear any more of her defense. This scandal certainly dropped a bombshell on Sharon and I's divorce proceedings. The media was all over it, and Sharon's affair with Pastor James became the talk of the town. Inevitably, my daughters and I were caught up in the storm. I was humiliated and angry. I hated Sharon's betrayal, and I hated her shamelessness even more. I swore that I would seek justice and defend my dignity in this divorce case. The ensuing trial, which became even more heated and complicated, made the issue of child custody especially difficult with Sharon's pregnancy. And as more of Sharon's scandals came to light, our marriage became a public embarrassment. My attorney, Jennifer, was remarkably calm. She told me that Sharon's pregnancy was proof of her marital infidelity, which was actually a factor in our divorce proceedings. "Dick, you don't have to worry," Jennifer said firmly. "The law and morality are on our side. Sharon's behavior has violated her basic obligations as a wife and mother. She doesn't deserve to have custody of her children. We will win." With Jennifer's encouragement, I picked myself up. I couldn't let Sharon's mistake destroy my future and the future of my children. I'm going to use the law to stand up for what's right and what's right for us. Thus, the long divorce proceedings, under the attention of the media and the public, entered a white-hot stage. I knew that this legal battle would determine my fate, as well as the fate of my children. I have to win. I have to get justice. This is my last chance and my greatest challenge. With the help of my attorney, Jennifer, I pressed Sharon in court to expose her crimes. I presented extensive evidence that Sharon had been in an illicit relationship with Pastor James for a long time, and that she was pregnant with Pastor James' child during the marriage. I brought in a private investigator to testify, and he went into great detail about Sharon's affair with Pastor James. Photos of their dates at restaurants, hotel rooms, videos of them making out in the park. The hard evidence made Sharon feel ashamed in the courtroom. I also called other employees of the church to testify that they all witnessed Sharon and Pastor James in various flings. They were alone in the office with the door closed. They kissed in the church locker room, and they were inseparable at charity events. These testimonies further corroborate Sharon's infidelity to me. Sharon's attorneys tried to argue that Sharon and Pastor James were just having a normal work-related relationship and hadn't crossed the line. But the defense paled in the face of overwhelming evidence. And, shockingly, Pastor James himself took the stand. He graciously admitted to his illicit relationship with Sharon and claimed that they were truly in love and that Sharon's child was the fruit of their love. "I love Sharon, and we're going to raise our children together." Pastor James faced the judge and righteously said, "I know that this is cruel to Mr. Thompson, and I'm sorry for the hurt I've caused this family. But I implore the judge to respect my feelings for Sharon and me and allow us to be together." The stage erupted, the media went crazy taking pictures, and the judge had to bang his gavel several times to maintain order in the courtroom. I felt a wave of dizziness and my blood rushed to my brain. I never thought that Pastor James would admit his relationship with Sharon in court and even ask the judge to support them. I jumped up in anger, pointed at Pastor James and Sharon and yelled, "You adulterous couple! You've ruined my family. You've ruined my life. You won't get away with this. I will make you pay." The judge banged his gavel repeatedly to calm me down, and Jennifer hurriedly pulled me back to my seat and whispered to me not to be impulsive. During the following trial, the parties engaged in heated arguments over child custody and property division, with Sharon's attorneys demanding that Sharon get custody of the two daughters and a large portion of the marital assets. They even went so far as to ask me to pay a substantial amount of child support and alimony. This is ridiculous. Why should I pay for that bastard? Why should my hard-earned money support that couple? I retorted angrily, refusing to agree to their demands. Jennifer used the law as a weapon to refute each of the other's arguments. She pointed out that Sharon had cheated on her husband and was pregnant with another man's child, which was a serious violation of her obligations as a wife and mother, and she did not deserve custody of the child. At the same time, I, as a victim, deserved more property compensation. In this way, the trial was conducted in a tense atmosphere. The two sides went back and forth, facing each other, neither of them willing to back down a step. However, as the trial progressed, the truth became clearer and clearer, and the scales tipped more and more in my favor. Finally, at the last hearing, the judge announced the verdict. Sharon was found guilty of marital infidelity and was primarily at fault. Sharon was found to be primarily at fault for the infidelity of the marriage, and I was awarded custody of my 2 daughters, with Sharon paying a certain amount of child support each month. At the same time, considering Sharon's fault, I was awarded most of the community property. Sharon sat on the defense table, her face pale and in tears. Pastor James also looked desperate and couldn't believe the result. I, on the other hand, although I had won the case, did not have a trace of joy in my heart. Yes, I won, but the price I paid was too high. I lost my beloved wife and my happy family, and my daughters had to suffer the pain of their parents' divorce. This divorce lawsuit, so that everyone has become a loser. The moment I walked out of the courtroom, I felt exhausted. Media reporters surrounded me, asking questions and flashing lights. I pulled myself together, answered a few questions briefly, and then left in a hurry. I knew that this divorce would be the center of media and public attention, that Sharon's cheating scandal, Pastor James' incestuous relationship, would be the talk of the town. And I, too, will inevitably be the subject of public scrutiny. But I don't care anymore. My only concern is how to get out of this nightmare as soon as possible and how to rebuild my life. I'm going to take my daughters and leave this place of sadness and start over in a completely new environment. I drove home and my daughters were waiting for me. When they saw me, they hugged me tightly and sobbed uncontrollably. I gently stroked their hair and whispered comforting words to them. "Daddy, what are we going to do?" Stephanie asked, sobbing. "Can we be as happy as we used to be without Mommy?" Fighting back tears, I tried to smile and said, "We're going to be okay, baby. Daddy will love you and protect you as much as he always has. As long as we're together, we're a complete family. Daddy, I hate Mommy." Melanie cried. How could she do this to us? How could she betray the family? I hugged my daughter tightly and whispered, "Baby, don't hate your mom. Although she made a mistake, she is still your mother. She gave you life, and we must learn to forgive her." In this way, my daughters and I embraced each other and cried, venting our inner sorrow. Outside the window, the sun was slowly sinking into the horizon, giving this broken home, casting the last touch of warm light. I know that from now on, I will shoulder all the responsibilities of this family. With all my love, I will heal the wounds in my daughters' hearts. I will use my hands to rebuild our home. This is my mission. That's what I'm here for. Sharon and I's divorce caused a huge stir in Atlanta. What should have been a mundane domestic dispute became the talk of the town because it involved the local man of honor, Pastor James. All the media outlets covered the case, from the details of the case to the background of the parties involved. For a while, the Thompson divorce was the talk of the town. Sharon's cheating scandal became the talk of the town. People looked at the former model wife with disbelief. They were amazed at Sharon's degradation and how she was able to cheat on her husband and destroy her family with such ease. "I can't believe Sharon would do such a thing." Mary, one of my coworkers, was shocked. She works in a church, and I thought she was a moral role model. I didn't realize that she was having an affair with the pastor and was pregnant with his child. Who can believe in love and marriage these days? Tom, another colleague, sighed. Even priests can do such things, and ordinary people are even more unreliable. In the end, men and women are unreliable. The image of Pastor James was also tarnished by the scandal. As a highly respected pastor, he used his position to seduce another man's wife, which was even more disgraceful. Many members of the congregation left the church in anger, believing that Pastor James was a hypocrite and that his behavior was completely contrary to the teachings of Christianity. "I'm ashamed of the church." One of the elders said angrily, "Pastor James is the devil incarnate. He ruined the reputation of the church and that poor family. A man like him doesn't deserve to be a pastor." Under intense pressure from public opinion, Pastor James had to resign from his pastorate and move away from Atlanta. It is said that he intends to take Sharon and their children and start over in a place where no one will recognize them. But even so, their reputations are so far gone, it's hard to see how they'll ever get back on their feet again. And I, as a victim of this storm, inevitably became the object of public attention. People sympathized with me as a poor, good man who had been deceived and victimized by a ruthless wife and a shameless pastor. What a sad story. My neighbor, Mrs. Johnson, lamented, "That Dick was such a good husband and father. He loved his family so much, but he was betrayed. His wife is such a bitch. She deserves to go to hell. This man is so miserable, being green and still have to raise 2 daughters. What can he do in the future?" In the bar, an uncle sighed. But then again, if he manages his own woman, it would not be reduced to this state. Men cannot be too weak. On the streets, people looked at me with a variety of sympathetic and accusatory eyes, judging me for what happened. For a while, I seemed to be the most famous man on the streets of Atlanta. Everywhere I went, I could feel people's eyes searching and talking. This feeling of being in the limelight is very embarrassing to me. I never wanted to be the center of attention. I just wanted to live quietly and be a good husband and father. But now, my life has been completely disrupted, and I have to face all these disturbances that I don't want to face. To add insult to injury, my daughters were also affected. At school, their classmates looked at them differently. Some even pointed fingers behind their backs, and the gossip added to Melanie and Stephanie's already traumatized state. "Daddy, they're all saying bad things about us." Stephanie cried and said to me, "They say Mommy is a bad woman and that our family is a disgrace. I don't want to go to school anymore." My heart was in my mouth, and I clung to my daughter's thin shoulders. My God, my children are so innocent. They don't deserve this. It was my failure to protect the family that made them go through such pain. I gritted my teeth and resolved to take my daughters away from this place. We needed a new environment to heal our wounds and make a fresh start. I quit my job and decided to move to another city. With the help of my attorney, Jennifer, I was able to obtain a sizable alimony and division of property, enough to support us for a period of time. The day before I left Atlanta, I drove alone to my and Sharon's former home. The house had been sold and its contents were packed in boxes and waiting to be moved. I stood in the empty living room for a long time, thinking about the past. There was a time when this home was filled with laughter. Me, Sharon, and the kids had spent so much time here. But now, it's just cold and broken. It's been destroyed by betrayal and lies, and there's no going back. Tears blurred my eyes. I took one last look at the place I once considered heaven and silently turned away, with a heart full of reluctance and regret. I know that I will start a new life, but I will never forget this heartbreaking place. It was both the grave of my love and the beginning of my new life. As I drove through the streets of Atlanta, I looked out the window at familiar sights, as if I were saying a final goodbye to this sad city. I don't know where the future lies, but I do know that as long as I'm with my daughters, everywhere is home. Atlanta, goodbye. You put me through the greatest hardship of my life, but you also taught me the true meaning of life. From now on, I'm going to take everything you've taught me and start a whole new life. After leaving Atlanta, I took my daughters to Savannah, a small town in Georgia. It's a quiet city away from the hustle and bustle, with a rich history and beautiful scenery. I hoped that here we could start a new life away from the pain of the past. I rented a small house in town and settled in. Melanie and Stephanie resumed their studies at the local school and quickly settled into their new environment and made new friends. It was worth it to see my daughters gradually overcome the darkness and put smiles on their faces. I, in turn, found a new job in Savannah as a broadcast engineer at a local radio station. The work environment and atmosphere were great, and my coworkers were friendly. Gradually, I began to get used to the quiet pace of life. However, the wounds in my heart are not so easy to heal. Although far from Atlanta, the shadow of the past still haunts me from time to time. Late at night, I always think of Sharon's betrayal. All those sweet memories, all those vows, were mercilessly torn apart by reality. I couldn't believe that my wife, who had loved me so much, could hurt me so much. Sometimes, I dream of Sharon and Pastor James together. They were kissing, they were in love, and all I could do was stand by helplessly and suffer the pain of betrayal. I often woke up in a nightmare, in a cold sweat, with my heart in my throat. I knew that I had to get out of the past and rebuild my mind. Otherwise, I would never be able to truly start a new life. I started to read psychology books to learn how to heal my trauma and regain my confidence in life. I also started to try meditation and yoga in the hope that I could heal the wounds in my heart through these means. Little by little, I began to realize that Sharon's betrayal was not my fault. It was her choice to cheat, to abandon our family. I shouldn't punish myself for someone else's mistakes. I'm learning to let go, to forgive. Not for Sharon, but for myself. Forgive me for my imperfections, for my ignorance and weakness. Only by letting go of the baggage of the past could I embrace life and the future again. I also began to pay more attention to my daughter's feelings. I knew that they were as hurt by the divorce as I was. As a father, I had the responsibility to help them get out of the darkness and regain confidence in life. I often talk to my daughters, listen to their thoughts, and share their joys and sorrows. I take them for walks in the park, swimming in the sea, and visiting museums. Through these parent-child activities, I hope to bring us closer together and rebuild our family. One day, I had the courage to talk to my daughters about Sharon, and I told them that even though their mom made a mistake, we shouldn't hold it against her. Everyone makes mistakes. The key is to learn to recognize them and take responsibility for them. We should learn to forgive and let go so that we can go further. My daughters were so understanding that they hugged me tightly with tears in their eyes. "Daddy, we will always love you." They said emotionally, "We are a family, and no matter what happens, we will always be together." At that moment, I couldn't control my tears anymore. Yes, we are a family. Perhaps this hurt has made us cherish each other more and made our hearts closer together. Since then, we've grown closer as a family. We spend every weekend together and plan our future together. For our daughters' birthdays, we throw little parties. For Christmas, we decorate the house and prepare gifts together. All the holidays have become wonderful times for us to be together as a family. And I, too, am slowly getting over the pain. Although the past trauma cannot be completely erased, but I learned to live with it. I began to believe that there is always sunshine in life, and as long as we face it bravely, the rain will clear up one day. In Savannah, I rediscovered the meaning of life. I had a new job, new friends, new hobbies. I began to learn photography and documented my life with my camera. Every weekend, I would take my camera and walk around Savannah to capture the beauty of the city. Gradually, my mind became more open. I began to realize that the meaning of life does not lie in having a perfect family, but in how we face the challenges of life and how we grow in the face of adversity. Sharon's betrayal has caused me the greatest suffering of my life, but it also gave me a chance to re-examine myself and reinvent myself. It made me realize that true happiness comes from inner peace and satisfaction, from love and gratitude for life. Now, I am no longer the innocent and weak Dick. I have become stronger, more mature, and know how to cherish everything around me. I know that no matter how many storms are ahead of me, I have the courage and wisdom to face them because I have the most valuable assets in my life: my daughters, my family, my friends, and myself. Yes, I have finally found myself again. In the midst of suffering, in the midst of trials and tribulations, my soul has been rebuilt and sublimated. Thanks to the betrayal of this marriage, I have the opportunity to recognize life again and feel the meaning of life. I, Dick Thompson, have finally built a new life on the ruins of Atlanta. From now on, I will continue my life's journey with gratitude and hope. After living in Savannah for over a year, my life has taken some new turns. First of all, my work at the radio station became more and more comfortable and was recognized by my supervisor and colleagues. I started hosting my own radio program where I shared my life with my listeners. I talked about my past, my hurts, and how I had learned to grow and forgive. The program was so popular that many listeners wrote to me with their own stories of support and gratitude. Through this program, I have made many new friends. Some of them have experienced betrayal in their marriages, and some of them are struggling in the trough of life. We encouraged each other, supported each other, and discussed the meaning of life together. Gradually, I realized that by helping others, I was actually helping myself. Seeing them come out of their pain and embrace life again makes me feel that everything is worthwhile. My hobby of photography has made my life more colorful. I began to compete in photo contests, and my work received a lot of positive feedback. One magazine even asked me to be a columnist and provide them with Savannah-inspired photos. I was so excited that I felt I had finally found another stage in my life. A more important change took place in my love life. I started trying to date again. At first, it wasn't easy for me. Sharon's betrayal had made me lose faith in love, and I was afraid of being hurt again. But gradually, I began to realize that I couldn't reject all possibilities just because of my past trauma. Everyone deserves a second chance, including myself. I was introduced by a friend to a lady named Sarah, a teacher at a local elementary school. She is a teacher at a local elementary school, and she is gentle and kind, with an infectious smile. More importantly, she knows how to listen and be tolerant. I feel very relaxed and at ease with her. We started dating. At first, we simply talked, watched movies, and went for walks. But gradually, our relationship became deeper and deeper. I realized that I enjoyed her company and I was willing to share everything with her. She, in turn, seemed to enjoy my daughters. Whenever we get together, she always brings them small gifts or tells them funny stories. One day, I found the courage to confess my past to Sarah. I told her about my marriage, my pain, and how I was reborn from it. I thought she would leave me, but she hugged me tightly with tears in her eyes. "Dick, you're the bravest man I've ever met," she said emotionally. "You've been through so much, but you haven't been broken. You got back up and became a better person. What courage and perseverance that takes. I'm proud of you, really." At that moment, I could no longer control my tears. God, how lucky I am to have met such a woman who understands and appreciates me. In her arms, I felt unprecedented warmth and happiness. I started taking Sarah to see my daughters. At first, they resisted. They were afraid that I would be hurt and that our family would be broken again. But gradually, they were touched by Sarah's kindness and sincerity. They began to accept Sarah and were willing to share their lives with her. Looking at my daughters and Sarah's happy face, I know that I have found the other half of my life. This time, I want to cherish this relationship. I want to use my heart to take care of this hard-earned family. On a beautiful fall day, I took Sarah and the girls to Savannah's most famous park, Forsyth Park. We picnicked, played, and laughed in the grass. The sun was shining through the leaves, casting dappled shadows on everyone's faces. Everything was so beautiful and harmonious. At this moment, I suddenly realized that I had truly come out of the haze of the past. The pain of the past had been washed away by time. The betrayal of the past had been smoothed over by forgiveness. In the love of my daughters and Sarah, I had found the meaning of life and the direction to move forward. I know that we still have a long way to go in the future, but no matter what challenges lie ahead, I have the confidence to face them because I have the most precious treasure in the world: the people who love me and the people I love. Looking at Sarah's gentle smile, looking at my daughter's happy smiles, my heart is full of gratitude. Thank you for life. Let me experience so much suffering in exchange for today's happiness. Thank you for the past, so that I learn to grow in the pain, so that I have the opportunity to embrace a better future. My friend, perhaps you are in the trough of life at the moment. Maybe you are suffering from the pain of betrayal and deception. Maybe you are lost in the fog ahead. But please believe me, as long as you do not give up hope, as long as you face life bravely, one day you will get out of the haze, ushered in the bright sunshine. Because life is never easy. It is those sufferings and trials, the achievements of our today's appearance. So, let us together, with strength and wisdom, to embrace all the possibilities of life. Dear friends, this is my story. A story of betrayal and forgiveness, of loss and rebirth. I, Dick Thompson, have hit rock bottom in my life, but I have finally gotten up and rebuilt my life with love and hope. Now, my family and I are living happily in the beautiful city of Savannah. We look forward to every day and every surprise that life will bring us. And all thanks to that heartbreaking betrayal of marriage. It gave me the opportunity to re-examine my life. It also made me realize the true meaning of love and family. Friends, no matter what you are going through at the moment, please remember, no suffering is eternal. As long as we harbor hope, we'll usher in the dawn. Let us together bravely into the future. Embrace the infinite possibilities of life. Thank you for taking the time to listen to today's story. If you enjoyed it, please like and subscribe if you haven't already. If you have a story to share about your own or someone else's experience, please feel free to contact me. Take care.